Something I also wanted to include in this video was a little bit of history about how I got into beekeeping, kind of what my influences are, just so that you guys know kind of where my opinions come from and kind of give you a bit of a reference for kind of understanding my philosophy for beekeeping. So first of all, I want to obviously mention Abbe Ware. So this is his book, Beekeeping for All, and I would highly recommend this to any new beekeeper who is getting started. It's not an expensive book, you can get it on Amazon, and it talks you through everything from kind of getting your first bees, putting them in the box, looking at the combs, harvesting the honey, everything you could cover. I mean, pest disease. It even has a section on recipes that you can do with honey. It teaches you how to do mead, other recipes for flu or wounds. Everything is in this book. So it was written, I think, about 100 years ago, but it went through several kind of editions. This is the latest edition, written in 1951, and yeah, like I say, really good reference. This is where I learnt most of my kind of theory for beekeeping. However, a huge amount of my beekeeping sort of knowledge has come from YouTube. I know a lot of people put videos on YouTube, and it's a really great source of information and practical tips for looking after your bees. If you're unsure on how you should do something and you haven't got a mentor nearby, there is going to be a mentor on YouTube who'll be able to teach you how to do whatever you want to do. My mentors, obviously, there's probably more than I can name, but the first person who really got me passionate about beekeeping was Cody Reeder. So his channel is called Cody's Lab, and he did a really comprehensive beekeeping series quite a few years ago. I think it's got around over 100 videos, and it takes you a complete year of beekeeping. So every time he went to visit the hives, he would take his camera and show you what he was doing with his hives. He's the sort of beekeeper who is kind of not anti-treat for mites and things like that, but he's very much a natural beekeeper. He lets the bees look after themselves. He breeds from the bees that are the strongest, and yeah, he's been keeping bees for 15 years or more. He was a kid when he started beekeeping, so he's really, his experience and knowledge is invaluable. You're not going to find that in many places, and he explains it in a really simple way, and he's just a really good person to teach you about beekeeping. The other person who has had a big impact is David from Barnyard Bees. So he's a commercial bee breeder. He breeds queens, and he makes nukes up for people to buy in America. So he lives in, I think, North Georgia, which is a similar sort of climate to where I live, and that's another thing you should look at whenever you're looking at YouTube videos, is find a beekeeper who lives in a place that's got a similar climate to you. Don't be watching, well, for my example, I live in the south of England. Don't be watching videos in Alaska and thinking, oh yeah, I need to winterize my hives like they do in Alaska. If you live in a place like the south of England where it doesn't get down to minus 40 degrees centigrade, and you don't need to insulate your hives anywhere near what they do in Alaska. I mean, those hives are getting buried under snow, for goodness sake, so you don't need to do anything like that. So David from Barnyard Bees, a good source of information there, loads and loads of videos, and just remember, he's coming from a commercial kind of background, so the things that he's doing is going to be different from your hobby beekeeper, but there's a lot of crossover there that's going to help you. Other things, or other places that I find information on YouTube, you've got Jeff Horchoff. So he's a monk who lives in Louisiana, does a lot of cutouts and swarm removal, but again, he teaches you some really good things about constructing beekeeping equipment, what it's for, extracting on a commercial scale. He's just an interesting guy, so if you're into beekeeping and you like the kind of the no treat and the more natural beekeeping, then Jeff Horchoff, he's a really good person to go for. And another person who works quite closely with Jeff is, or in a lot of his videos, is Dirt Rooster, Randy from the 628 Dirt Rooster channel. He is another person who I've watched nearly every single one of his videos, and he's just a interesting guy, really entertaining, and yeah, he kind of no veil, no gloves, just getting in there with the bees, and it's really fun to watch videos. And yeah, he does some link ups with Jeff Horchoff, and even Yappy the bee man. So he's another one who is commercial but just has a really good attitude when it comes to looking after your bees, very kind of down to earth. And yeah, I'd highly recommend Yappy the bee man. And I'm sure there's loads of other ones that I've watched over the years that are helpful. I probably would recommend staying away from your kind of commercial high cost production videos, so the ones that are done by oh well, let me try and think of an example. So kind of the ones that are being made by the people who make the beehives, they're obviously got a huge kind of commercial incentive to give you information that's probably going to be slightly misleading. I mean, it's not going to be lies, but it's going to be half-truths, and just stick with the people who are actually showing you how the bees are responding to the things that they're saying. And that's kind of my advice when it comes to your new beekeeper finding information on how to look after bees. Another thing I want to mention is that I'm actually a really new beekeeper. I've only been keeping bees for a little over a year, or actually not even quite a year. I got my first colony of bees last May. So that was a nucleus colony of bees that I got from a chap called Michael Simmons. So if you live in Devon and you want to get some bees, then Michael Simmons is a bee breeder in Wimpole, so he can get you some bees. But I got a colony of bees just in a nucleus colony, and then I transferred them to a Warre hive and let them grow and build up over last summer. I got one box of honey off of them last summer, then they've overwintered. We're now in mid-March and we're entering my second year of beekeeping. So also bear that in mind when you're kind of listening to my advice. It's really a very kind of naive advice. I've only been keeping bees for a short amount of time. I've researched them a lot, I've read a lot, but actually putting the things into practice, well, hopefully this year you'll be able to follow along with me, and we'll put all of the things that I'm saying into practice, and you'll probably learn with me. Maybe some things work, some things don't work, but it should be an entertaining sort of series of videos. This is always the first one, and then there probably won't be another one for a couple of weeks, but once we start getting into spring, there'll be a lot more activities and things to do in the apiary, and we'll have new bees arriving. Luckily managed to get hold of a guaranteed buckfast colony. So anyone who knows much about bees, the buckfast bee is a really top quality honey producer developed by a monk in Devon called Brother Adam. So he's been working with bees for over kind of 80 years and been all around the world with bees to find the best genetics for producing essentially what he would consider as close to the perfect honeybee for the actual beekeeper. So that will be an exciting arrival when that happens. Okay, so I've taken the smokers out of the cleaner and rinsed them in fresh water, and I've brought them back out here, put them on the table, and reattached the bellows. So whilst the smokers were in the cleaner, I just put a little lick of paint on the wooden parts of the bellows just to help protect them from the weather and the elements, just make them last a bit longer. Often it's the bellows that go before the smokers actually are out of use. And the most important thing, and the reason why we cleaned them, was to clean this part. So the rim body and also the rim of the lid. So now that just opens and closes with no effort at all, and let me just try and do this one-handed. I'd hold it with my hand. But yeah, that is actually slots on and it does come off a lot easier. That one's a tighter fit anyway, so it's a bit more tricky, but I'll try. It's hard to do it with one hand. Okay, so you can see how that design would get clogged up a lot more. It might just need a little bit more cleaning around there, and then it will come off. But yeah, that cleaning technique worked really well. I only soaked them actually for a couple of hours. Normally I would soak them for a day, but because I'm making this video I kind of rushed it a little bit. The next thing was the baffle. So you can see that's the small baffle, and I really like that design. It stands the baffle up off the bottom of the can, so the fire doesn't actually get the bottom of the can too hot, and it also allows where the air comes in at the back there. You see that little cone from the back of the bellows where it blows out of there. It allows the air to go underneath and up through the grate, whereas the ones that come with the 7 and the 10 are these sort of thin flat discs, and although they have sort of little trivets on them, they're always pressed down. So my idea is just to stand these up, unless, I mean, this might be what they're supposed to be done anyway, but I've never had anyone show me, and I've never seen anyone do this on YouTube. Just sort of bend these. I'm doing this left-handed. I'm right-handed, and kind of making a trivet like that. Similar sort of thing to that. So, because I don't use the 7-inch mainly because I don't like the fact that it has such a large capacity, and you have to put so much fuel in it to kind of fill the chamber. They all need to have the chamber kind of filled, but yeah, you use more with the 7-inch. So that should take up a bit more space in the actual smoker body, and it should also allow the air to go underneath and then up through the screen. So those go back inside. The hive tool is clean. Like I said, I'm just going to sharpen that end. You can see it's quite a coarse grind from the factory. I'll just sharpen that up a bit and make it easier to slide between the boxes. That one's all clean as well. There we go, 2 clean smokers. Okay, so it's the end of the day and I'm pretty much ready to go to bed. I didn't get round to painting the bee boxes, but I'm sure you can imagine for yourselves what painting a box, well, painting a wooden box would be like. And I just want to say thanks for watching. And there was one more YouTube channel that I wanted to give a shout out to, and that was Vino Farm. They have a really good channel, lots of instructional videos, and the great thing about it is it's from the eyes of a new beekeeper. I mean, the chap on Vino Farm has been keeping bees not very long, and he's kind of learning as he goes, which is kind of what I hope this channel will be, and hopefully the rest of this sort of series. So this is the end of episode 1, and I hope it gives you some inspiration to go out there and start looking after your equipment, or even possibly deciding to give it a go and get into bees. Thanks again.